The Continuum Conspiracy, Alex's battle against a hidden power. The Clone Conspiracy Season 2. Chapter 1. Shadows of the Past. The world had changed, but not in the way Alex had hoped. After the fall of the Genesis Project, the revelation of the Clone Conspiracy sent shockwaves across the globe. Protests erupted in every major city, governments were destabilized, and trust in leadership hit an all-time low. It seemed like the truth had set the world free, but freedom often comes with a price. In the wake of the chaos, a new power emerged from the shadows, the Continuum. They were not just the remnants of the Genesis Project. They were the architects of its darkest secrets, the true masterminds who had been pulling the strings all along. The Continuum was more than just a clandestine organization. It was a vast network with roots deeper and more intertwined than anyone could have imagined. Unlike Genesis, which focused on creating obedient clones for menial tasks, the Continuum had far more ambitious plans. They aimed to infiltrate and control global power structures by replacing key leaders with enhanced, loyal clones. For Alex, now living under the alias Ethan Cross, the battle was far from over. The weight of his experiences and the loss of Aiden, his original, haunted him daily. The man who once walked boldly through the world now lived in the shadows, ever wary of the reach of the Continuum. Every day was a careful dance between blending in and gathering intel. He kept his new identity meticulously, never staying in one place too long, always watching his back. He knew that even a single mistake could cost him his life, or worse, his freedom. Meanwhile, Emily had managed to infiltrate the Continuum's ranks, slowly working her way up through their hierarchical labyrinth. Posing as a devoted agent, she gained the trust of those in power, all while secretly feeding information to Alex. The missions they had undertaken together had forged an unbreakable bond between them, and now, even separated by necessity, they remained in constant contact through secure, encrypted channels. Emily's reports were the only thing keeping Alex connected to the world he once knew, a world he was determined to save, even if it meant risking everything. One rainy evening, as Alex sat in his dimly lit apartment, staring out at the neon lights reflecting off the wet streets below, his encrypted device buzzed with a new message. It was from Emily, and it contained the words he had both dreaded and anticipated. "They're alive." The words sent a chill down Alex's spine. The message was brief, but it was enough to convey the gravity of the situation. The original clones, including Aiden, were not dead as he had feared. They were alive, but they were far from safe. The Continuum had kept them as part of a new, sinister plan, a project even darker than Genesis. This revelation hit Alex like a freight train. Aiden, the person who had started it all, the one who had sacrificed so much, was still out there, held captive and likely suffering at the hands of the Continuum. His heart pounded as a flurry of emotions rushed through him: anger, guilt, determination. He had to find Aiden and the others. He had to put an end to this nightmare once and for all. The life he had been trying to build under his new identity suddenly felt hollow. There could be no normalcy, no peace, as long as the Continuum existed. The night was filled with plans and preparations. Alex knew he couldn't do this alone. He needed Emily's inside knowledge, the skills of those few allies he could still trust, and above all, a plan that would outmaneuver an organization that had already proven itself to be ruthlessly efficient. Every step forward would be a dance on the edge of a knife. As dawn approached, Alex finalized his plan. The first step would be to gather information, real, concrete intel about where the originals were being held and what the Continuum was planning to do with them. He would have to contact old friends, people who had helped him in the past, and convince them to join the fight once more. But first, he needed to reach out to Emily. She was his lifeline inside the Continuum, and her safety was paramount. The message he sent to her was short but filled with the weight of their shared mission. "We need to meet. There's no time to waste." As he hit send, Alex knew the path ahead would be fraught with danger. The Continuum was not just another enemy, it was the enemy, the one he had unknowingly fought against his entire life. But this time, he was ready. He was no longer the naive man who had stumbled upon a secret conspiracy. He was a warrior, forged in the fires of betrayal and loss. And now, he was about to face the biggest battle of his life. The world outside his window continued to spin in its chaotic dance of light and shadow, unaware of the storm brewing beneath its surface. But soon, very soon, that storm would break, and when it did, nothing would ever be the same again. Alex took a deep breath, steeling himself for what was to come. The game was on, and this time, he was playing to win. Chapter 2: Beneath the Surface. The dim glow of the monitor was the only source of light in the room as Alex scanned the documents Emily had managed to obtain. The Continuum's true scope was beginning to unfold before his eyes, and it was far more sinister than he had imagined. Every file, every piece of information painted a grim picture of an organization that had woven itself into the fabric of global power. They controlled politicians, military leaders, corporate giants. Anyone who held influence was either replaced by an enhanced clone or manipulated by the Continuum. The name Project Ascend appeared repeatedly in the documents, always accompanied by ominous references to the next stage of evolution and absolute control. The files detailed a facility located in a remote, heavily fortified area where the Continuum was perfecting a new generation of clones. Clones not just created to replace but to surpass their human counterparts in every way. These enhanced beings would possess superior intelligence, physical abilities, and most alarmingly, unwavering loyalty to the Continuum. The implications were terrifying. A world where the true power resided not in elected officials or CEOs, but in a hidden cabal controlling an army of nearly indestructible operatives. Emily had also managed to include details about a high-ranking Continuum official who was responsible for overseeing Project Ascend. This person was set to visit the facility in the coming days, a perfect opportunity for them to gather critical intel and possibly sabotage the project. But the risks were astronomical. The facility was surrounded by state-of-the-art security systems, including enhanced clones programmed to protect it at all costs. Any misstep could lead to disaster. Alex knew they couldn't delay. The more they waited, the more the Continuum's plans would advance. He reached out to the few trusted allies he had left, individuals who had gone underground after the Genesis Project's exposure. These were people who understood the stakes and were willing to risk everything to stop the Continuum. Among them was Marcus, a former military strategist with a knack for unconventional warfare, and Lena, a tech genius who had been instrumental in exposing Genesis in the first place. The team assembled in a safe house far from prying eyes, a place where they could plan without fear of being overheard or tracked. Emily joined them, bringing her insider knowledge and first-hand experience with the Continuum's methods. The tension in the room was palpable as they reviewed the data, knowing that the fate of the world could very well rest on their shoulders. As they discussed the logistics of infiltrating the facility, Alex couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The Continuum was meticulous. Nothing ever happened by chance in their operations. The fact that they had allowed Emily to gather so much information and smuggle it out without detection seemed too good to be true. But they had no choice. They had to act on the information they had, or risk losing their only chance to strike a decisive blow. Emily briefed the team on the layout of the facility, describing the various levels of security they would need to bypass. The plan was to infiltrate the facility under the guise of a security check, using forged credentials that Lena had meticulously crafted. Once inside, they would split into teams, one to plant explosives in critical areas, and the other to download all the data they could find about Project Ascend and the enhanced clones. However, just as they were finalizing the details, a knock echoed through the safe house. Everyone froze. Visitors were not expected, and any deviation from their carefully planned schedule was a potential threat. Alex motioned for silence as he approached the door, his hand instinctively reaching for the weapon holstered at his side. Slowly, he opened the door, revealing a figure shrouded in a dark coat, their face obscured by the hood. "I don't have much time," the figure whispered urgently, stepping inside and closing the door behind them. The team tensed, ready for anything. But as the figure lowered the hood, a collective gasp rippled through the room. It was Dr. Lydia Cruz, a scientist known to have been involved with Genesis, now a rogue agent within the Continuum. "I'm here to help," she said, her voice tinged with desperation. "If you're planning to take down Project Ascend, you need to know what you're up against. This isn't just about clones anymore. It's about something far worse." Lydia's unexpected arrival threw the team into disarray. Her reputation as a top scientist within the Continuum meant she had access to knowledge few others did, but it also meant she was a potential liability. Could they trust her, or was this another elaborate trap set by the Continuum to lure them into the open? Alex's instincts screamed caution, but they couldn't afford to turn away valuable information. He allowed Lydia to speak, her words revealing the horrifying truth behind Project Ascend. The enhanced clones weren't just physically superior, they had been implanted with neural chips that linked them directly to a central AI, controlled by the Continuum. This AI had the ability to override the clones' free will, turning them into perfect soldiers who could execute commands without hesitation or fear. The goal was clear: to create an army that could not only dominate the world, but ensure the Continuum's absolute control over it. The implications were staggering. The Continuum was no longer just a secretive organization. It was on the verge of becoming a global dictatorship, with the power to control not just governments, but every aspect of human life. The team realized that their mission was more urgent than ever. If they failed, the world would fall under the iron grip of the Continuum, and freedom as they knew it would cease to exist. As the night wore on, they solidified their plans. Lydia would guide them through the facility's defenses, using her knowledge to bypass the most dangerous obstacles. Marcus and Lena would handle the technical aspects, ensuring that the explosives were placed in the most strategic locations and that the data about Project Ascend was extracted and transmitted to the public. Emily, as always, would be at the forefront of the infiltration, her experience with the Continuum making her the most valuable asset in their operation. Before the night ended, Alex gathered his team together for one final briefing. The gravity of their mission weighed heavily on them all, but they knew they were fighting for something far greater than themselves. This was a battle for the future of humanity, and they would not back down. "We've come too far to turn back now," Alex said, his voice firm. "We have the chance to end this once and for all. Let's make it count." The team nodded in agreement, their resolve hardened. The Continuum had been a shadow looming over their lives for too long. It was time to bring that shadow into the light and burn it away. As they prepared to depart for the mission that could very well be their last, Alex couldn't help but feel a flicker of hope. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and up against an enemy that seemed invincible. But they had something the Continuum could never have: each other. And in that unity, they found the strength to face whatever lay ahead. The journey into the heart of darkness had begun. Chapter 3: The Hidden Allies. The cold, unforgiving night air pressed down on the team as they made their way to the designated rendezvous point. The terrain was rough, but Alex led them with unwavering determination. The weight of what they were about to do hung heavy in the air, but it was this very weight that pushed them forward. Every step brought them closer to the Continuum's secret facility and the potential endgame for Project Ascend. The team, now including Dr. Lydia Cruz, moved in silence, each member lost in their thoughts, yet focused on the mission at hand. The plan was complex, with no room for error. Their objective was clear: infiltrate the facility, gather critical data, and sabotage the project. But the closer they got, the more the looming sense of danger crept into their minds. As they reached the outskirts of the facility, the team gathered behind a large outcrop of rocks, blending into the darkness. From this vantage point, they could see the entrance to the underground compound, heavily guarded and surrounded by high-tech security systems. The facility was buried deep beneath the earth, shielded from prying eyes, and the only way in was through an armored elevator embedded in the cliffside. Emily checked her watch. It was almost time. The Continuum's overseer was scheduled to arrive any moment now, and with them, the opportunity to slip inside unnoticed. Lena had already hacked into the facility's network, providing them with a narrow window to disable the external security systems. Lena's fingers danced over her portable device, working to create a temporary blind spot in the surveillance grid. Her brow furrowed in concentration as she bypassed layers of encryption. The seconds ticked by, each one feeling like an eternity, until finally she looked up and nodded. "We're in," she whispered. The team sprang into action. They moved swiftly and silently, their movements choreographed from months of preparation and training. Lydia took the lead, using her insider knowledge to guide them through the facility's labyrinthine structure. The corridors were eerily silent, illuminated only by the occasional flicker of fluorescent lights. It was a place devoid of life, but brimming with a cold, calculated purpose. As they descended deeper into the facility, the temperature dropped and the air grew thicker. The walls, lined with polished steel and blinking panels, seemed to close in on them. Every turn brought them closer to the heart of the Continuum's operation, and every step heightened their awareness of the danger they faced. After what felt like hours of navigating the underground maze, they reached a large, reinforced door. According to Lydia, this was the entrance to the control center, a nerve hub of the facility where the most sensitive data on Project Ascend was stored. Behind this door lay the truth they sought, as well as the tools they needed to dismantle the Continuum's plans. Lydia set to work on the door's security panel. Her hands were steady, but Alex noticed the tension in her eyes. She knew what was at stake, and despite her past allegiances, she was now as committed as the rest of them. After a tense moment, the door slid open with a soft hiss, revealing the control center beyond. The room was vast, filled with rows of terminals and screens displaying streams of data. In the center stood a massive mainframe, its digital heart pulsing with the life of the entire facility. Lena immediately moved to one of the terminals, plugging in her device to download the data. Meanwhile, Marcus and Emily set to work planting explosives at strategic points around the room. As Lena worked, the screens flickered, and suddenly, the visage of a stern-looking man appeared on every monitor. His eyes were sharp, and his expression conveyed authority and menace. It was the Overseer, watching them from somewhere within the facility. "I know you're here," the Overseer's voice boomed through the room, calm yet chilling. "You're predictable. You think you can disrupt our work? You think you can stop the future?" Alex's grip tightened on his weapon as he scanned the room for any sign of where the Overseer might be hiding. But there was no time to waste. "Keep going, Lena," he urged, his voice low but firm. "You're too late," the Overseer continued, his voice echoing ominously through the speakers. "Project Ascend is already in motion. Soon, the world will be reborn under the Continuum's guidance. You can't stop what's coming." Lena's heart pounded in her chest as she raced against the clock, the data transfer creeping slowly toward completion. The tension in the room was palpable, but she focused on her task, blocking out the Overseer's taunts. With every passing second, the team could feel the noose tightening around them. And then, without warning, the power surged, and the room was plunged into darkness. The hum of the mainframe faltered, replaced by the oppressive silence of the void. For a moment, panic gripped the team, but Lena's fingers found the emergency switch on her device, restoring just enough power to keep the data transfer going. In the dim light, Alex saw movement in the shadows. His instincts kicked in, and he raised his weapon, aiming toward the source. But before he could react, the door they had entered through slammed shut, trapping them inside. The sound of heavy footsteps echoed in the corridor outside, followed by the unmistakable sound of a locking mechanism engaging. "They're coming," Lydia whispered, her voice barely audible over the pounding of Alex's heart. Emily and Marcus readied themselves for the inevitable confrontation. The Overseer's voice returned, now laced with a sinister amusement. "I must commend you for making it this far, but your efforts are futile. You'll be nothing but a footnote in history, just another failed rebellion." Alex's mind raced as he calculated their next move. They couldn't allow themselves to be cornered, not when they were so close to their goal, but the odds were against them. Trapped in the heart of the Continuum's lair, with an army of enhanced clones closing in, they were running out of options. Just as the situation seemed hopeless, Lena's device beeped, signaling the completion of the data transfer. She quickly unplugged it, tucking it safely into her bag. "We've got it," she announced, her voice tinged with both relief and urgency, but there was no time to celebrate. The door shuddered as something powerful began to force it open. They could hear the mechanical whir of servo motors and the clatter of boots on steel. The enhanced clones were here, and they were coming for blood. "Fall back," Alex ordered, his voice commanding and clear. The team moved swiftly, retreating to the far side of the room where the mainframe's bulk offered some cover. Marcus activated the explosives, setting a timed charge that would destroy the control center and cripple the Continuum's operations. The door buckled, and a moment later, it was torn from its hinges, crashing to the floor with a deafening clang. Through the breach poured a squad of enhanced clones, their eyes cold and lifeless, their movements unnervingly precise. They were faster, stronger, and utterly relentless. The firefight that erupted was brutal. Alex, Emily, and Marcus fired in unison, their weapons blazing as they tried to hold the clones at bay. Lydia, though not a soldier, did her best to assist, hurling improvised explosives and shouting warnings as the clones advanced. The air was thick with smoke, the acrid scent of burning circuitry, and the deafening sound of gunfire. But the clones were relentless. They moved with an almost inhuman speed, dodging bullets and countering with lethal force. One clone grabbed Marcus, lifting him off the ground with terrifying strength. But before it could deliver a fatal blow, Emily shot it through the head, saving Marcus by a hair's breadth. "We can't hold them off forever," Emily shouted, her voice barely audible over the chaos. "We need to get out of here." The charge was set to detonate in minutes, but escaping the room was proving to be a near impossible task. The clones were too many, too strong, and the team was running out of time and ammunition. Just as all seemed lost, a loud, metallic grinding noise filled the room. The ceiling panels above the mainframe began to shift, revealing a hidden maintenance hatch. "Up there!" Lena shouted, pointing to the opening. "It's our only way out." With no time to argue, the team made a break for the hatch, covering each other as they moved. Alex was the last to go, firing at the advancing clones until the very last moment. Then, with a final burst of adrenaline, he hoisted himself up through the hatch, slamming it shut behind him. The team crawled through the narrow ventilation shaft, the sounds of the battle below growing fainter with each passing moment. They were battered, bruised, but alive, and they had the data they needed. When they finally emerged outside, the cold night air hit them like a wave, washing away the stench of battle. The facility was silent once more, the only sound the distant hum of the forest at night. But in the distance, a deep rumble signaled the detonation of the explosives, followed by a muffled explosion that shook the ground beneath their feet. For a moment, they stood in silence, catching their breath and taking in the enormity of what they had just done. The Continuum's control center was destroyed, and with it, a significant part of their operations. But the fight was far from over. "We did it," Emily said, her voice filled with a mixture of exhaustion and triumph. "But we've just started a war." Alex nodded, the weight of their accomplishment settling heavily on his shoulders. "We've made a dent, but the Continuum is far from finished. We need to regroup, analyze the data, and plan our next move." They made their way back to their safe house, a secluded cabin deep in the woods, far from prying eyes. The journey was quiet, each member lost in their thoughts, their minds still reeling from the intensity of the night's events. Inside the safe house, the team gathered around a makeshift command center. Lena connected her device to a laptop, eager to sift through the stolen data. The room was dimly lit, the flickering screen casting shadows on their faces. The tension was palpable as they waited for Lena to decode the encrypted files. Lena's fingers moved swiftly across the keyboard, her concentration evident. After a tense half hour, she finally leaned back in her chair and exhaled. "I've got something. It's a list of facilities, personnel, and schedules. But there's something else, a series of encrypted communications." Dr. Lydia Cruz stepped forward, examining the data with a practiced eye. "These encrypted messages might contain the information we need about Project Ascend and the remaining original clones. We need to crack these codes and find out what the Continuum has planned next." As the team delved into their work, the sound of a vehicle approaching outside made them freeze. Alex moved to the window, peering through the blinds. The headlights of a car cut through the darkness, and he tensed, preparing for the worst. The vehicle stopped, and the engine cut off. There was a brief silence, then the sound of footsteps approaching the cabin. Alex signaled for the team to be on alert. They took up defensive positions, their nerves taut with anticipation. The door creaked open, and in stepped a figure Alex hadn't expected to see. It was Isaac, a former clone who had escaped the Continuum years earlier. Isaac had been an ally of Alex's during the initial fight against Genesis, and his reappearance was both surprising and welcome. "Isaac," Alex exclaimed, lowering his weapon. "What are you doing here?" Isaac's face was haggard, his eyes shadowed with the weight of his experiences. "I heard about the attack on the control center. I wanted to help. The Continuum's reach extends far and wide. I've been tracking their operations, and I've got some intel that might be useful." The team welcomed Isaac inside, eager to hear what he had to say. As they gathered around the table, Isaac spread out a map and several documents pointing to locations and marking key targets. "I've been tracking the Continuum's movements," Isaac began. "They're planning a major operation soon, something called the Reclamation Initiative. It's designed to take control of major cities and replace their leaders with enhanced clones." Alex's eyes narrowed. "If the Continuum succeeds, they could seize global power. We need to stop them before it's too late." Isaac nodded. "Exactly, but there's more. I've also identified a network of underground resistance groups who oppose the Continuum's rule. They might be able to provide additional support and resources." The prospect of joining forces with resistance groups invigorated the team. They realized that their fight against the Continuum wasn't one they could win alone. By forming alliances with other groups and individuals who shared their goals, they could amplify their efforts and increase their chances of success. "Let's reach out to these resistance groups," Alex said decisively. "We need all the help we can get." "Isaac, can you help us make contact?" Isaac agreed, and over the next few days, the team worked tirelessly to connect with resistance leaders. They coordinated meetings, shared intelligence, and built a network of allies willing to stand against the Continuum. The first resistance group they contacted was a formidable network of hackers and activists known as the Phoenix Network. Led by a sharp-minded individual named Mara, the Phoenix Network had been disrupting the Continuum's communications and spreading awareness about their activities. They were eager to join forces with Alex and his team. Mara's meeting with Alex and Emily was intense but productive. She provided valuable insights into the Continuum's operations and offered her team's support in terms of technology and intelligence. In return, Alex's team shared their own data and plans, ensuring that their alliance was built on mutual trust. As they prepared for the next phase of their mission, the team felt a renewed sense of purpose. They were no longer just a small group fighting against a powerful enemy. They were now part of a larger coalition determined to thwart the Continuum's ambitions. The days turned into weeks as they coordinated their efforts and developed a comprehensive strategy. Alex, Emily, and their allies planned a series of targeted strikes against key Continuum facilities, aiming to cripple their operations and disrupt their plans for the Reclamation Initiative. Despite the progress they made, the challenges remained daunting. The Continuum's enhanced clones were a constant threat, and their resources seemed limitless. Every operation they undertook was met with fierce resistance, and each victory came at a steep cost. The fight was far from over, but Alex and his team were more determined than ever. With the support of their new allies and the knowledge they had gained, they were ready to face whatever the Continuum threw their way. As they stood on the brink of their next major operation, Alex couldn't help but reflect on the journey that had brought them here. The struggle against the Continuum was far from a personal vendetta. It was a battle for freedom and justice on a global scale. And Alex knew that as long as there was hope, they would continue to fight. The Reclamation Initiative was looming, and the team's resolve was tested like never before. But with each passing day, they grew stronger and more unified, ready to confront the darkness that threatened to engulf the world. The fight for humanity's future had only just begun. Chapter 4: The Heart of Darkness. As the team moved forward with their coordinated strikes against the Continuum, the operation was fraught with challenges. Their recent victories had bolstered their spirits, but the looming shadow of the Continuum's ultimate plan was a constant reminder of the battle that lay ahead. Alex and Emily, now more determined than ever, focused on the next critical phase of their mission. Late into the night, Alex sat at the command center, scanning through the latest intel from the Phoenix network. The dim light from his computer screen cast a blue glow on his face, highlighting the furrowed lines of concentration. The data from their recent incursions had revealed troubling patterns. The Continuum was not just aiming for a takeover, but had a grander vision of global domination. Lena, who had been working tirelessly to decrypt the remaining encrypted messages, looked up from her workstation. "Alex, you need to see this," she said, her voice tinged with urgency. She handed him a document filled with highly classified information. It was a detailed blueprint of the Continuum's ultimate strategy, known as the World Order Initiative. Alex scanned the document, his eyes widening as he absorbed the scale of the plan. The Continuum intended to use Project Ascend to create a new world order where enhanced clones would replace the world's leaders. The documents outlined their timeline for the takeover, with key operations scheduled to launch in several major cities across the globe. "This is worse than we thought," Alex muttered, his mind racing. "They're not just replacing leaders, they're aiming to control the very fabric of society. We need to act fast before it's too late." Emily, who had been listening intently, nodded in agreement. "Our next move should be to rescue the remaining original clones. If we can free them, we might gain crucial information and disrupt the Continuum's operations from within." Dr. Lydia Cruz, who had been poring over the technical aspects of the plan, added, "We have a lead on the location of the remaining original clones. They're being held in a high-security facility, heavily guarded and isolated. It's going to be a risky operation, but it's our best chance to strike a significant blow against the Continuum." The team prepared for the rescue mission with meticulous care. They reviewed the facility's layout, identified potential entry and exit points, and formulated a strategy to minimize risk. The operation was set for the dead of night, when security would be at its lowest. Under the cover of darkness, Alex, Emily, and their team infiltrated the facility. The building was a fortress, with high-tech security systems and patrols that made each step perilous. The team used every bit of their training and technology to bypass the defenses, moving silently through the shadows. The facility's interior was stark and clinical, a chilling reminder of the Continuum's inhumanity. Alex and Emily navigated through a maze of corridors, their hearts pounding as they approached the holding cells. They encountered several guards along the way, dispatching them with precision to avoid detection. As they reached the holding area, they found themselves in a large, sterile chamber lined with containment pods. Inside each pod were the original clones, suspended in a state of suspended animation. The sight was both haunting and hopeful. Alex's heart raced as he approached Aiden's pod. He carefully disabled the locking mechanism and opened it. Aiden, though weak and disoriented, was alive. Alex helped him out of the pod, and Aiden's eyes met his with a mixture of relief and gratitude. "Alex, Emily," Aiden whispered hoarsely, "I knew you'd come. The Continuum is planning something terrible. They're using the originals to control the enhanced clones, ensuring their loyalty and obedience." Emily quickly assessed Aiden's condition and provided him with medical aid. "We need to get out of here before reinforcements arrive," she urged. "We've already triggered several alarms." The team moved swiftly, carrying Aiden and using the facility's security systems to their advantage. They encountered fierce resistance from the Continuum's forces, including enhanced clones who were programmed to protect the facility. The battle was intense, with both sides fighting tooth and nail. As they neared the exit, the team was confronted by a figure emerging from the shadows. It was Dr. Richard Vale, the leader of the Continuum. His presence was both unexpected and chilling, as his eyes gleamed with a cold determination. "Did you really think you could thwart us so easily?" Vale's voice was calm but menacing. "The Continuum has anticipated every move you've made. Your efforts are futile." Alex's fists clenched, anger surging through him. "Vale, you're behind all this. You're the one manipulating everyone from the shadows." Vale's lips curled into a sinister smile. "I'm afraid you're mistaken, Alex. My role is merely to enforce our vision. The true architect of our plan is someone far more influential, someone you know very well." Alex's mind raced as he tried to grasp the implication. Who are you talking about? Vale's gaze was cold and calculating. The person who has been pulling the strings, orchestrating everything from the beginning, the person who betrayed you and your friends. The realization hit Alex like a sledgehammer. Vale was referring to someone from his past, someone he had trusted implicitly. The betrayal was not only a personal blow, but a significant strategic setback. The mastermind behind the Continuum's plan had been manipulating events from the shadows, ensuring that every step Alex took played into their hands. As Val prepared to leave, his expression hardened. Consider this a warning. Your fight is far from over. The Continuum will not rest until our vision is realized. With Vale's departure, Alex and his team made a hasty exit from the facility. Their mission accomplished, but their spirits heavy with the weight of the revelation. They had rescued the original clones and gained valuable insights, but the fight was far from over. The team regrouped at their safe house, the gravity of the situation sinking in. They had uncovered the Continuum's plans and identified their new enemy, but the battle was far from won. The stakes had never been higher, and Alex knew that the fight for humanity's future was only just beginning. The revelation of the mastermind behind the Continuum's plan added a personal dimension to their struggle. It was no longer just a fight against a faceless enemy. It was a battle against someone who had once been an integral part of their lives. With this new knowledge, Alex and his team prepared for the final phase of their mission, ready to confront the darkness that threatened to engulf the world. Chapter 5: The Final Battle. The dawn of the final confrontation loomed large over Alex and his team. The recent revelations had intensified their resolve, and as they prepared for the ultimate showdown with the Continuum, the weight of their mission pressed heavily upon them. The battle to dismantle Project Ascend and stop the Continuum's global takeover was not just a fight for survival, it was a fight for the very essence of humanity. Alex, Emily, Dr. Ha, Lydia Cruz, and the rest of their team stood on the precipice of what could be the most significant battle of their lives. They had gathered all available intel on the Continuum's headquarters, a high-tech fortress located in a remote but strategically vital location. This was the nerve center of their operations, where Project Ascend was in its final stages. The plan was bold and risky. Alex and Emily, along with their allies, would launch a coordinated assault on the headquarters. Their objective was clear: destroy the facility, eliminate the enhanced clones protecting it, and gather any remaining evidence that could bring the Continuum to justice. As night fell, the team set their plan into motion. Under the cover of darkness, they approached the heavily fortified compound, using stealth technology and advanced tactics to avoid detection. The facility was a sprawling complex of reinforced steel and glass, with high-tech security systems that glowed ominously in the night. Alex and his team navigated through a series of elaborate traps and obstacles designed to thwart intruders. Every step was fraught with danger, but their preparation and teamwork allowed them to advance steadily. They engaged in fierce skirmishes with the Continuum security forces, their advanced weaponry clashing with Alex's team's high-tech gear. Inside the heart of the headquarters, the air was thick with tension. The team split into two groups, one to target the control center, and the other to disable the facility's power grid. Alex led the assault on the control center, determined to cripple the Continuum's operations. As they breached the control room, they were met with a formidable defense. Enhanced clones, stronger and faster than any they had faced before, engaged them in a fierce battle. The room became a whirlwind of flashing lights and clashing weapons. Alex fought with a fierce determination, his focus singular, to reach the central command and stop Project Ascend from proceeding. In the midst of the chaos, Alex found himself face to face with Dr. Richard Vale, the mastermind behind the Continuum. Vale's presence was a chilling reminder of the personal vendetta that had driven much of the conflict. Their confrontation was more than a mere clash of ideologies. It was a deeply personal battle. Vale's eyes were cold, his demeanor calm despite the turmoil around him. "You've come a long way, Alex," he said, his voice carrying an unsettling calmness. "But this is where it ends. You and your allies are nothing more than an inconvenience." Alex's anger flared. You've been manipulating everything from the shadows, Veil. You used my past against me, and now you're trying to control the future. This ends now." Veil's lips twisted into a cruel smile. "You still don't understand, do you? The Continuum is not just about control, it's about evolution. We're creating a new order, a world where humanity is perfected, and you're merely a footnote in our grand design." Their fight was intense and personal, a brutal exchange of blows and strategy. Veil's enhanced abilities made him a formidable opponent, but Alex's determination and resourcefulness gave him an edge. The battle was not just physical, it was a clash of ideologies, a struggle between freedom and control. As they fought, Alex began to see through Veil's rhetoric. Veil's vision of a perfect world was nothing more than a prison for those who did not conform. The revelation fueled Alex's resolve, and with a final, decisive strike, he managed to overpower Veil. With Veil defeated and Project Ascend's control center destroyed, the team turned their attention to the remaining facility. The battle had been hard fought, and the facility was in ruins. The survivors regrouped, assessing the damage and the losses. Emily and Alex stood together amidst the wreckage, their faces marked with exhaustion and determination. The final assault had come at a great cost. Several team members had been injured, and the facility's destruction had left them with a deep sense of accomplishment tinged with sorrow. "We did it," Emily said, her voice heavy with emotion. "But at what cost?" Alex nodded, his gaze focused on the horizon. "We've stopped the Continuum, but the world is still reeling from what's happened. We need to help rebuild and make sure this never happens again." As the team prepared to leave the ruins of the Continuum's headquarters, they were greeted by a new reality. The world was in chaos, and their fight was far from over. The defeat of the Continuum was a significant victory, but it was only the beginning of a new chapter in their struggle for freedom and justice. In the quiet aftermath of the battle, Alex and Emily reflected on the journey they had undertaken. The fight against the Continuum had been grueling, and the road ahead was uncertain. They had achieved their goal, but the repercussions of their actions were far-reaching. The final scene found Alex and Emily in a quiet, secluded location, looking out over a world that was beginning to heal from the wounds inflicted by the Continuum. The sky was clear, and the first signs of dawn hinted at a new beginning. "We've made a difference," Alex said, his voice filled with a mix of hope and resolve. "But there's still much work to be done. We need to ensure that the world learns from this and that the values of freedom and individuality are preserved." Emily nodded, her hand resting on Alex's shoulder. "We'll continue to fight for what's right. Our mission may be over, but our commitment to a better world is just beginning." The season concluded with Alex and Emily looking toward the future, their resolve strengthened by their experiences. The final battle had been fought and won, but the journey of rebuilding and ensuring a just world was only beginning. As they faced the dawn of a new era, they were determined to uphold the values they had fought for and ensure that the sacrifices made were not in vain. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, leave a comment, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more amazing short story. See you in the next one.